Hey everyone, welcome to 21st Century Saints, our podcast and live stream series for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in the United Kingdom and around the world. We're excited to be here tonight. I'm excited to be here tonight. And we do have some other folks who will be joining us. Now, we're going to do things a little bit different tonight. So we're going to see how that goes. See what you think, and let us know if you like it. But for the moment, before we get started, we just want to do a couple of little announcements, a couple of little things that we want to share. So first of all, if I could just check if you guys can all hear us okay. Yeah, it looks like everything's all. It's so strange doing this intro on my own. I've normally got a little team of people somewhere in the background. So yeah, it's great that you're all here. Okay, now that we know that this is working, little housekeeping. We want to say a super huge thank you to the people who've donated to the podcast. I cannot thank you guys enough. What you have allowed us to achieve is something that we're going to be able to talk about over the next few weeks. But for the moment, please know from our hearts that you made such a difference and that it is so appreciated. So thank you so much. Now we've also put links in the chat function here. So if you would like to consider making a donation, we would really value that. Like I say, we're excited to update you about what we've done with your donations. I don't want to brag here, but we've got a team who've worked miracles, so I'm excited to show you guys. Okay, the next thing we need you to do is we need you all to be aware that we are super sensitive to the fact that this is a really tough time in the world economy right now. We know that making a donation isn't an easy thing to do when everyone is just so committed elsewhere. One of the most important ways that you can help support the podcast and amplify the work that we do is if you would consider subscribing. Just hitting the subscribe button across Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a review, join us in the comments. All of these things really help us. But also, if there is a particular episode that you think might benefit someone you know, we would love it if you would share with them. We're really excited that our work is talked about and interacted with right across the Mormon spectrum. So it is super helpful to so many people when you trust us enough to be able to do that in your community. So thank you to those who've been doing it. We're going to ask you to go and do it some more. Thank you. And then the third thing, as always, we're going to just really push and ask for you guys to support us by signing our petition, going on and checking out the open letter. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, all of the cool kids are signing this. If your name is not on it and you want your name to be on the petition or the open letter, then please just go to our website at 21stcenturysaints.org, where you can just send us a message. The petition has been delivered to leadership within the church. It's being delivered both publicly and privately. We're having those meetings and we're making sure that it's being seen by the people who need to see it. Now, anyone who has read our open letter, who has seen the petition, and who's spoken with us about the work that we're doing, whether they are no longer members of the church, whether they've never been members of the church, whether they're in the church and disengaged, but also active church members are all coming together and supporting our petition. I'm a drama queen. I love the I love the excitement and I do speak in hyperbole a lot of the time, but I have never seen anything like this. It's it's non-threatening. It's making it really, really clear what our aims are and what we're looking for. So we would really ask you to consider signing the petition, adding your name to the open letter, and also if you would consider sharing that, it is super important. We've also on our website and social media channels, but especially websites easier, if you want to contact any of your local leaders, general leaders, elected representatives, either as a member of the church or a non-member of the church. We've got template letters to give you ideas for how to do that. And we want to thank all of you who have been engaged in that work. Like I say, we're going to be able to tell you a lot more, hopefully in this next week, exactly what results we're already seeing here. And we are so proud to be able to demonstrate this is what a community can do when it comes together. So we've got our buddies in the background here, but before I bring them on, so we've got a couple of people in the green room, some familiar faces. I want to tell you about how we're going to do tonight's episode. It's going to be a little bit different. So we want to talk tonight about the fact that there have been so many Mormon themed TV shows, documentaries, all across your viewing platforms. So we've got, Disney Plus, Netflix, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Mormonism is everywhere. What happens when a member of the church who is active? What happens there? Do we have conversations about what that looks like? Is this just something specifically for ex-Mormons? Is this a time when we're just taking pot shots at the Mormon church? We know that that's how many what we would refer to as true believing Mormons, TBMs, often do think that way for really good reason. So we want to have a conversation about how it's being received. What do we do with all of this information? And we're going to talk in general about some of these shows, and then we're going to talk about a new show that's up and coming just shortly. So if you have any thoughts on this subject, if you have any thoughts about what's been happening in these shows, any particular highs, lows, favorite parts, but especially the impact of these shows, what have you seen in your community? What are you hearing people saying? If you have any thoughts about that, I am going to ask if you would like to come kind of a little bit like a really sexy internet call-in show, a really cool one. All you have to be is fully clothed. If you want to come in, unlike the Brit Avengers, every time we do a call, one of those guys is not. But if you want to join us and tell us what you're thinking, maybe just share for a couple of minutes, we would really love to hear. So if you would consider stay in your jammies, give us a call. You can keep your camera off or you can keep it on. Come and join us, because I want to know what you think and we want to talk about it. We in the comments, please do share your thoughts if you would prefer to stay there in the chat. But I would love it if you would think about joining us tonight. So with that, first of all, we're going to bring in Queen Sarah Elizabeth, who's here with us tonight. And if I can scroll down, I can also hopefully bring in our other. In fact, while I try to just simply scroll down. Yeah. Sarah, do you want to say hey and introduce everybody to you and your work and all of that stuff?
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. Just checking, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So my screen's a bit funny. I can't see myself, but I can see you, Jane. Okay, yeah, good to be here. Good to be able to have an opportunity to think about some of these Mormon documentaries and films and programs that have been around a lot recently. And there's a lot of key messages that keep popping up in our safeguarding work that we've been doing, that keep popping up documentaries and these programs about the church, and you keep hearing a lot of the same themes and the same messages, and that's really interesting to think about all those. And as you were saying earlier, really good that people are talking. We're seeing things starting to move in the safeguarding campaign. We're seeing people starting to take a lot of notice. For example, in our ward today, the 5th Sunday, the bishop chose to talk about safeguarding based on loads of information that I've been sharing and giving to state president and talking and sharing and stuff like that. And I didn't know he was doing that lesson this morning, but he chose to do that lesson, and he did a good job of it, and it got people talking and it got people thinking. So that you know, that's just one little thing. Keep talking to your bishops and your state presidents, folks, because they will take notice, and the more you go to them, the more you talk to them, the more they will listen and take notice.
Oh my goodness, that is so true. And you know what? It's not all going to be sunshine and roses. Let's face it, they won't always listen. But tell me, how many meetings have you been in just this past month?
In the last month, I've lost count. I actually, quite genuinely, without wishing to, I've actually lost count of the number of meetings I've sat in the last month. They have been meetings with MP, with the independent chair of Safeguarding Board, with children's charities, with experts in the safeguarding field, with, I've had a couple of meetings with my MP now, a couple of discussions with safeguarding boards.
If we were to make it super black and white and just ask you, so how are you feeling about how the meetings have gone? Good, good, medium, or really good? What, bad, medium, or really good? Like, how are you feeling?
The meetings have been very, very positive. We have had huge amounts of support. We've had, I mean, the independent safeguarding board chair said to me, "Thank you for what you are doing. Please thank your co-workers. Thank you for what you are doing." He said, "This is needed." We're getting children's charity that are emailing and confirming messages that they're in despair about the safeguarding that the church is not doing. We're getting fantastic support and feedback from all agencies. The despair, the concern, the worry I have is the church are still not doing it. And we're back to my favourite saying, aren't we? I'll believe what they do when they do it. I don't believe what they say.
You see, now this is what I
talk about safeguarding. They can talk. They can talk a good talk about safeguarding. They can talk well, actually, they don't even talk a good talk about it, but they think it's a good talk. They give a talk about safeguarding they think is good. But what they're still not doing is they're not doing the absolute essentials. But we need to push them harder and harder on a ward and stake level. Go and ask. Everybody, go and ask your bishop and your state presidents to simply put a notice up about Childline. That's one step forward.
Hey, just Sarah, have you got any notices in your ward about safeguarding?
No, we don't, but I have some good news on that front.
Please.
At the moment, we don't have, but a while ago, when we first started our safeguarding campaign, I spent a lot of time gathering all the local details of safeguarding boards, their phone numbers, their contact details, how you report abuse, out of hours number, core office numbers for local safeguarding teams in the area. Compiled all that information with what needed to be on a poster about safeguarding, with it being everybody's responsibility, what to do if they were concerned, how to report. And this morning I had the fantastic news that those posters are going to be going up in our stake. Now they haven't, so I hold my bated breath, but I have heard that they are going up.
There are things that are happening that we are really excited to be able to tell everyone about. Yeah,
it's not enough, and it's not happening quickly enough.
Oh, too right. Yeah,
and it's absolutely ludicrous that the church think they need the amount of time they need to come to a conclusion that every children's charity in the country the chairs of independent safeguarding boards, the MP who actually is an expert on sexual abuse and exploitation for the Home Office and sits on the relevant committees, the All Parliamentary Faith Group, various other political groups all agree the church are engaged in regulated activities. So how are they getting away with not doing this? So it's everybody's universally agreed upon it except the church. The church still have to move and they still have to make that final step of progress. But we're getting there. We are getting there, but we will get there faster and much more effectively if every single person simply sends an email to that state president tonight to say, we expect you to undertake the following safeguarding checks, background checks, posters displaying information in wards and effective training. Just drop a 3-sentence email to say, we want you to do this.
Absolutely. So thank you for thank you for your update, and you are doing incredible work on behalf of not just 21st century saints but children that you're keeping safe. That's what your work is allowing us to do. Thank you so much. You're performing miracles. So we also have, because we're zhuzhing up the format tonight, we also have from Chilsville Chapel Hall in Scotland. We got our Alana. Alana, how are you doing? Do you want to give us a little bit of pedigree and bio and that kind of thing?
I'm doing great. I'm coming to you live from my bed in my jammies. Not the norm tonight. I'm doing well. Sadly, my laptop has gone to laptop heaven, and so I'm from my phone tonight, so I hope it's all good.
Your lighting is incredibly good. How do you do that? I think it's something in your actual skin that is up yours. Right. Okay. Do you know what? Let's just bring everybody up to speed. So what I'm going to do while I get Alana to do this is I'm going to put out the show link. If anyone has anything that they want to add to the discussion tonight, I'm going to put out the link, and what it's going to do is it will bring you into our online studio. And we'll, if you could just wait there a few minutes, we'll bring you on and you can share your thoughts. If you don't want to do that, we have a fantastic comment section. There's a great comment community happens here every time, so we would encourage you to use that. But we want to hear you, and if you come to have your camera on, we want to see you too. So while I put that show link out, Alana, do you want to fill everybody in about the craziness of our lives? How crazy is it? How crazy?
So, life is very crazy at the moment, between children, dogs, yep, you name it. There's problems around that. It's been pretty crazy. Obviously, podcast, we're hoping to try and get back with that. I'm going to be having some meetings coming up to get things organised and give me a kick up the bum that I need.
People, so we've been exhausted. We've been super tired. After we went to Sunstone, and we spent, like lots of people, we spent a long time trying to recover from that. And it was pretty intense. So between things that are just life with our families, and the amount of work that we're doing in the background, we've been podcasting a little bit less. However, we've missed you all. We love doing this, so we're really excited to be back with a discussion. Now, what we don't want to necessarily do tonight is I said this to Queen Sarah earlier on. In my family, we have an acknowledged, agreed upon sort of statement that people who give spoiler alerts are also the people who go to outer darkness, along with those who deny the Holy Ghost, right? No spoiler alerts. But there might be some spoiler alerts because we're talking about some shows. So forgive us for that. I am super sorry if that happens. But, we're not really looking necessarily to talk about the details of each show. What we want to talk about is how the shows are impacting our communities. So as 3 Mormon women, as 3 Latter-day Saint women at different stages of how we engage in the church. You know, Alana has totally taken a step back. Sarah is engaged and attending regularly. I am in that kind of space too, but the church means a lot to us. That's why we do this. We find that conversations are so important. Tell me, what kind of impact are you hearing amongst our active Mormon community about the documentaries? Is there any chatter, any discussion about it?
What I'm hearing with active communities at church is they don't like these documentaries. They think they show the church in a very bad light. They think it's very biased reporting, and that's not really representative of the church. And it was just like crazy weirdos that did some silly things, and that's just nothing to do with the church whatsoever. There doesn't seem to be any sense that some of the terminology, the messages, some of the key things that you're hearing in a lot of these documentaries are key themes that we see throughout the church.
Yeah,
you know, people
absolutely.
Nothing to do with us. That is nothing to do with us. Well, actually, I'm sorry, but it is something to do with us, and it's something.
Absolutely, it stems from Mormonism. It might not be what Mormonism looks like specifically, but it all derives from Mormonism. Like, that's where their journey began to get them to that stage of where they are now.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, you know, you just hear things of entitlement, coercive control, obedience, deference to leaders. We hear all these cultural things that are coming up time and time again in a lot of these documentaries, which again come up time and time again in our safeguarding work. And it's interesting. Members of the church, in the same way as they are able to separate abuse, that's nothing to do with us. That's just one bad, evil person who did that. Nothing to do with being a part of the church. Nothing to do with church. There's a real separation between all the things in the documentaries are nothing to do with us.
Well,
like, university, they're not like, they see them as just another bit of bad press and people that are prejudiced against the church. And I see a bit of a persecution culture coming out within church whenever anything negative is in the media or the press about the church.
Goodness,
yes. Why do they have to mention it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church? Why do they have to even say that? Well, because it's actually pretty relevant in a lot of cases.
And especially, I feel like, you know, anti-Mormon, I don't really believe in the term anti-Mormon. You know, I don't think it's helpful at all. But there have been extremely, there's no really another term that sort of fits it. Anti-Mormon movies, videos, books, exposes over the years. I mean, it happens. And I think we got to that place possibly for what, you know, are complicated reasons. And some of these shows, okay, so let's talk about some of the specific shows that, like, you know, historically we will have seen. What were some of the more mainstream ones? So, like, I remember we would be watching an episode of House, and there was a Mormon character in it, and he seemed like quite a nice guy, and, you know, a couple of smart ass comments. But, you know, hey, look at them mentioning Mormons. In general, every time Mormons are mentioned, they're weird, they're quirky, they're wacky, and they're going to say something about what we believe that isn't true, right? South Park. Here's the thing. I still have not seen that episode of South Park. But having a son called Kyle, let me tell you that South Park is very much on my radar, and that also Kyle's mom is not whatever you're going to claim she is. Can I just say, people who, if you're singing that song just now, then just please know that I've heard it 3 million times. Anyway, South Park, I've never watched that episode, but what I understand about the episode is there's nothing in it that's actually really inaccurate. It's actually kind of helpful for understanding what Mormons believe.
Well, I haven't seen it, but certainly it long before was common mainstream discussion in Sunday school and primary lessons. South Park were telling about the rock in the hat, a stone in a hat.
Right?
Sorry. stone in a hat.
Alana, have you watched that South Park episode?
It's been a long time, but I have watched it. Yeah.
You have? Did you laugh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're got well.
You're going to
see,
have Lana, sorry.
That's
Yeah, it was a
why
long
she
time ago.
is
I wouldn't
where
be able
she
to
is.
remember the specifics of it, but I do remember watching it.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't it true that the you know the episode they do get into heaven? The Mormons were right. Is that? I understand
I would
that was
rely on
South
her
Park's
statement,
take.
yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't
so
seen that.
yeah, it's not really my thing, but you know, maybe I
No,
don't know.
I don't
Maybe.
really like South Park specifically, but I just watched it because someone had said that episode was there, so I remember going and watching it at the time.
Yeah, that now your life path all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that you've talked about it again, I'll probably need to go find it again and watch it.
I know we're so well. Okay, what else? There's clearly been loads of stuff over the years. Okay, Big Love. When that was on TV, I was horrified. Couldn't watch it. Found it super, super sinister, even the idea of it. So this would have been about the same time that I think this would have been before the Elder Holland BBC documentary happened. Now, this is for anyone who hasn't seen the BBC documentary. The journalism on that was superb, and the church was sort of presenting a narrative. Here's a really good journalist who asked questions that the church didn't really expect them to do their homework about. So they wanted to know about the Strengthening Church Membership Committee. And eventually this was so embarrassing for the church that, I mean, you go onto YouTube and you can see it there. It was really, I watch it now and it is so uncomfortable. But I watched it live at the time as a TBM and I totally missed all the uncomfortable stuff. It was happening before my eyes and I could not see the car crash. I don't know if like the angels just whiffed it out yeeted it out of my brain, but it certainly didn't go in. I don't think I could have told you about the Strengthening Church Membership Committee after having watched that episode, even though that was really huge. Did any of you all watch or
I don't think
react?
I've seen that one.
I only saw it as an interview. It was John Sweeney was the journalist, and he was an amazing interview. That literally went from Jeffrey R. Holland telling him there's no such thing, it doesn't exist, we do not have this in our church, to him having to spill the beans on what it really was, which was just fantastic. I didn't see that until after I was aware of the SCMC and the fact that they would be better placed in North Korea than they would be in a democratic country, but I didn't actually watch it until I was aware of them anyway. And then,
yeah, well, I was aware, maybe that's why it didn't sink in, but it was what was missed was that people, by my brain, the guy who's saying, no, this isn't a thing, you would have to ask someone else, to ask an Elder Holland who wasn't, he gave this answer about how it's designed for like anti-polygamy stuff or whatever. Then it goes somewhere else
to protect the church from polygamists.
Yes.
Well, the only people
super uncomfortable
in the Mormon church are some of these older guys when their wives die. They're the only people practicing polygamy.
Well, we're going to see where that story goes as we talk about the rest of the shows. But
I think it will come out.
It fascinates me because I fascinate me because my response was just so. I did not see what was right in front of me, and I'm saying now I was doing all the church history thing. I think I was like super nuanced, but I did not notice this really, really uncomfortable thing happening. So that when I watched it again years later, like, where was that part in the original? It was just bizarre. So we then we have the Mormon moment that kind of come up where lots of news things were happening about Mormonism. But the more kind of recent thing, so I'm going to start off with one that wasn't Mormon focused, but it was called Seduced, and it was all about the Nexium cult, and that was on Facebook. Now, I know, Alana, you watched it way back.
Did I?
And this, yeah. So this is going to be super sweet and funny, and we've got lots of help in tonight, and we're also asking for your help because Alana has a Swiss cheese memory, and so there's lots of holes, and she has seen every single one of the things that we're talking about tonight, but remembers nothing. And it's just how Alana's neurology works, and it's sweet and it's adorable, and we love her. So yeah, if there's anything that you would like to contribute. But the Nexium story was super interesting because we were specifically looking at cult behavior, a cult totally separate from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But we could see from that there were patterns of leadership, about being a cult member, about some of the messaging that it's really hard not to draw parallels with. So that was certainly one of the first that came on my radar, and it was kind of almost safe enough because it wasn't really Mormonism. Now, did anybody? So here's one that I haven't seen that I know that Alana did. Lots of people were talking about. Sarah, did you? Friend of the Family. That was on Netflix. Actually, I'm like, I did see it. I did watch. So this is one where, okay, there's just this really uncomfortable moment where, like, the father in the family is involved in a sexual encounter with the guy who's grooming the whole family. Okay, everyone, this is a crazy night, a crazy week in the world of Jane and Alana. And if everyone also wants to wave to my son, who wanted to interrupt the podcast to say that he's leaving for a week to go off and serve his country.
I was going to say, come on, Kyle, come and tell us, because you deserve a little bit of a...
I would literally have turned the camera around specifically for that, but
I think he deserves a bit of a proper... Is he gone?
Well, he's trained in getting in and out quick. He's trained in... Yeah. He's going to be, looking for the threat. So he's probably off, I don't know, saving lives as we speak. Anyway, so yeah, that was one that was super uncomfortable because it was all about the sort of sexual grooming, the predatory behavior, where I was being asked by a friend of ours, that this sort of punchline. So the dad in this story, who's crying, very emotional, very upset, feeling like he hasn't looked after his family, he was involved in a sort of sexual encounter with this man. And there is what fascinates me about it is that we're going to see throughout all of these Mormon subject documentaries, there's a power balance there that plays out in a very uniquely Mormon way that you would not necessarily see in other less demanding religions, if that makes sense. Alana, do you recall it at all? Is anything coming back to you about that?
No, I do remember that one, little bits about it. There was so much in it, and I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I'm one of these people who think they can hear me through the screen, and I'm shouting at them like, "Why are you not doing this? Like, why are you not phoning the police? Your child's missing. Like, what are you, screaming at the TV?" That part of it, I was like, "Whoa, what just happened there?" Like when you're talking about the sexual encounter, it kind of took me back a little bit. Like you're like, "Whoa," didn't expect to see that.
The one that I was most and also welcome to our new viewer, everyone. Woo, we love you, and thank you for joining us in the comments. And just reminding you all, if anybody has any thoughts that they would like to talk about the impact on any of these shows on the community, if you scroll back up in the chat, you'll find a link to come and tell us on the screen. We'd love to have you here for a few minutes. The one that I was super excited about coming out, and I was saying to Alana, look, we're going to get this one. You're going to love this story. I'm not even going to fill you in. You're just going to enjoy it, which is horrific because I'm talking about a serial killer. This was genuinely what I was saying. So I do really apologize. But was Murder Among the Mormons, the Mark Hoffman murders. Now, Alana, I love, look at that little face of, I have no idea still what you're talking about, Jane. Sarah,
Yeah.
do you recall any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I watched Murder Among the Mormons. Again, it was one that I heard a lot of people saying, oh, they didn't know why the media wanted to go back and revisit this. It had happened so long ago, and people would make wrong conclusion about the church. People would draw the wrong conclusion about the church. And actually, what Murder Among the Mormons showed really clearly was how easy it is to deceive. That actually, if you're skilled and you're competent and you know what you're doing, you can deceive people, which is what Mark Hoffman was so very, very good at doing. He knew enough about the church to be able to make things just credible enough to get people to reel them in on a little bit of a hook to say, oh, this is just real enough. And he planted enough seeds to get people believing what he did. He certainly saw life as cheap. He was willing to kill to protect his own skin, and he was willing to kill to protect his reputation as a master forger.
Yes. Please continue, Sarah.
I think it's just interesting with Murder Among the Mormons how the bit that the church didn't like coming out from what I heard from members that I spoke to that they didn't like was that it made it look as though the church had been conned by somebody who was a con man.
Yes.
And they were, and I think for a lot of members, how do they solve the dissonance that comes up in your mind? Like prophets, seers, and revelators, and apostles were engaged in the purchase of those documents. And apostles were engaged in saying, we want these, we want to buy these off you and have them in our church library because, yeah, this is good, we want to do that. How were people that are prophets, seers, and revelators conned by a con man? And
You know,
it's a dissonance, doesn't it, in your mind? It's, hang on a minute.
exactly.
God, you've got the spirit of prophecy, you're a revelator, you're a seer, but you didn't see these documents were forged and these documents were faked, and you were still wanting to go out there and get these documents for the church, and you were still willing to carry on having numerous discussions.
Now, you see, I feel like every Mormon needs to know these stories, need to know the history, need to know the context, and that not only just because of Mormon news. Everybody, you know, and sort of that Salt Lake bubble, you know, this was newsworthy. Over here, not really any idea. And we spent so long in the UK of being shielded from all of this sort of stuff that was, you know, it was just another Tuesday in Utah. This was a big story. And one of the really fascinating things to me is, like, I have so much privilege. No one has ever in my entire life on a podcast in this world sort of held my feet to the fire, or even sort of said, you know, Jake, what are your views on that? What do you do with that? You know, it just hasn't ever really happened. And I'm very comfortable to have conversations. To be fair, the answer is always it's complicated. So it's a pretty short conversation, realistically. But the Mark Hoffman stuff, I think, is the start of, can Mormons sit in cognitive dissonance? So there are two main issues for me that I love to sit in this question. First of all, could that have happened where Mark Hoffman, were it to have been a woman who was forging those documents? Could it?
Well, isn't that interesting? That's a really interesting thought, because would Mark Hoffman have been given the respect and the credibility as a true expert and somebody who really knew what he was doing to have been allowed meetings with the apostles at that time anyway? Would it have been relegated to somebody else to go and meet with him?
Yeah.
I wonder. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? If it was a woman, would they have given the same amount of professional credibility and time and space to his stories? Would he have conned everybody? Would he have been more believable because he was a woman, and people would have been thinking, oh, women wouldn't go around lying, committing fraud like that? She must know what she's talking about. Is it less believable because in the patriarchal system that we have within the church, I don't know. So that's a really interesting thought. I don't think a woman would have had meetings with the apostles in the same way.
Now,
But I don't know that I've got the true. I don't know if I can truly give you a
it is
backdrop.
just an interesting thought question because because it leads into the main issue from Murder Among the Mormons. The real issue in the Mark Hoffman forgeries is it all becomes dependent on this question of how do we discern? How, can who's the gift of the Holy Ghost actually speaking to? And the prophet of the church. So I feel like because we're not just talking about, here are these really interesting documents. Loads of women work in church history, but you're seeing images around that desk, and it's all of these people with priesthood.
But I think, Jane, I think one of the things we can't separate Murder Among the Mormons from and Mark Hoffman and his forgeries from, one of the things that I think makes it very uncomfortable for the church and very uncomfortable for members to not even want to have to think about it. They want to just close their mind to it. It's TV. It's probably all blown out of all proportion. It's just wrong. We just forget about that. There's the backdrop to this church around the Kinderhook plates, the Book of Abraham, so there's backlogs, Zelf, there's backlogs to all these things in the church, isn't there? Kind of links where there's been questions that people have asked and have looked at. And I think that's kind of in people's minds, perhaps, well, the prophet didn't actually know that those were false at the time, did he?
Don't you think, as an active Mormon who, if going to church every week, talking about, baked into all of the stuff that we talk about, is the idea, is the doctrine of the gift of the Holy Ghost, all of these, so much of our church is propped up on discernment. Going alongside priesthood, okay,
all of that.
it all comes back to those things.
Foundation of our church.
Yeah, my real, I guess, confusion is, if that is so important, wouldn't we? Okay, you tune into any youth devotional, the same question keeps on coming up: how can I tell the difference if it's my thoughts or the Holy Ghost? And it's such a, they talk all the time, it is such a common question. So if we were to deal with those types of questions as adults, where is the discernment? What does discernment look like? Can we be fooled? Can actually somebody come up with this lie? If even prophets and apostles are getting that wrong, wouldn't those be fascinating conversations?
I think that's the key bit, is as members of the church, we tend, you find that many true believing Orthodox Mormons tend to feel very spiritually safe, and that gives them an emotional safety, but they tend to feel very safe with the comfort that we have a prophet that leads the church, and that the prophet is open to revelation, he receives the word of God, he has a gift of discernment, he's a seer, he will know the things that we need to know in order for us to stay safe. So to some extent we place our safety in the prophet's ability to discern the will of God and communicate that to us in this day and age. And we place a lot of our trust and our faith and our confidence in the belief that we have a prophet. We teach our primary children, follow the prophet. He won't lead you astray. Follow the prophet. You'll be safe that way. So when something comes along like the Mark Hoffman forgeries, that the church, for all intents and purposes, we're very happy to be engaged in discussions about, to buy, to look at, that threatens that very belief system, doesn't it? It threatens at the very core of everything that as a Latter-day Saint Mormon you hold fast and true to, that the prophet is that solid, you can depend on his ability to discern the will of God. But and the apostles, they all fall in that same category. But if we can't rely upon them to tell us, be warned by God, hey, it's the forgery, that is what you're messing about with this for, can we actually then trust them to warn us of other major things that we need to know about? And I think that's where people become very unsettled and don't like these things being on TV, because you either have to think about it,
You have to sit
and you
in the
might not like
dissonance.
what you have to think about. Yeah. And you might not like what thinking comes up out of that. Or
But
you
if
have
we
to
did,
move on from it.
we could sit in Sunday schools, in firesides, members could be sitting in their homes as they're exposed to, you know, like I said, this was news, is you know, these would have been thoughts over the years that have just been suppressed, and now they've turned into sort of, you know, the documentary true crime sort of thing that people are tending to watch for information, for entertainment rather than information. But you know, to have those discussions around, okay, so you know, do we need discernment? Is it relevant? Should we distance ourselves from, you know, completely that whole doctrine? What is the role of the Holy Ghost, if at all, plays in that? Can we have a prophet who actually doesn't, you know, or what would that imperfection actually look like? You know, I love the idea of, in those firesides that we just spoke about, when youth and adults are asking these types of questions, how do I know the difference? You know, to be able to talk about, well, yeah, even the prophets get it wrong.
And actually, that, to my mind, is one of the healthiest messages that we can give people at
Healthiness.
church.
Yes.
I actually feel much more confident with the church giving me the message that maybe the prophet got it wrong. Maybe the prophet doesn't always know. And I think if we can say to our kids, well, one of the things that I've been saying in this safeguarding work over and over again is revelation, discernment, fallible. They are
Yes.
not infallible processes that we can rely upon. So what is the threat? And I think this is what it comes down to, Jane. What is the threat that members of the church feel when they fear that the ability of the prophet around discernment is being questioned? Because actually, he's a human being. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to get it wrong. Joseph
Yeah.
Smith got it many a time. So I don't know why we
Yes. And
hold prophets today to a different level of accountability.
I mean, I totally agree, but also we have to leave room for the fact, and I think what's behind it is the fact that when Joseph Smith got it wrong, and when he made decisions that were terrible, and when, you know, over the years, when church leaders have made decisions that are not okay, people leave the church. And if we were to have that conversation, you know, could we have a prophet that has no gift of discernment, that it might be, well, you know, that is going to be a deal breaker. I don't want this. And that's okay. But what you have got then is you've got an actual thinking discussion where you are informed about your own religion, and you can make those choices, and you're not shamed for, I don't have to stop that thought. Does that make sense?
And absolutely. And I think it's also, along with that, it's absolutely okay for us to have the discussion and be much more open and confident in having the discussion about the prophet is not infallible. Because we know we believe the prophet. And I'm not suggesting anybody teaches the prophet is infallible. We don't. But the problem is people go with complete and utter trust. And I think sometimes we need to be able to say that as members of the church, there is no fundamental conflict between us having a spirit of curiosity and adventure and wondering about church, the prophet, discernment, all of those things. There's no fundamental discrepancy between us being able to be curious, wondering, having a spirit of adventure as we go on our spiritual journey through the church, to us being able to say, yeah, I'm an active member of the church and I'm engaged. That there shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to be one or the other. You should be able to accept that we've got a prophet who is, him and his apostles are not going to get it right. They're going to do some plain stupid things some of the time.
Okay, we have the honour and the privilege of having Queen Maven come and join us to share some thoughts. Hey, Queen Maven, what you thinking?
Are you guys able to hear me okay? This
We
is not my
can
normal setup.
hear you
Okay.
great, and thank you for coming
Perfect.
to join us.
Right.
We've been so excited at some point to ask you to come on the show, and I love that this just happened. So
Oh, good.
I'm super happy about this. Yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, this is kind of going back a little bit to what we were talking about with members watching. And I just remember for myself, at my most fully believing, I absolutely hated any videos that were put out basically by the church. No matter how positive they were overall, just whatever was inaccurate or that I didn't like or that portrayed us in a bad light, that would always be enough to ruin the whole thing for me, and for me to see it as an anti-Mormon bit, no matter how neutral it may have been, because there was no such thing as neutral to me. And I also noticed, when you were talking about just completely missing things from the BBC documentary and just having it go right over your head, I feel like I did the same thing so often. And so I was just thinking about that, because I was really relating to that bit when you were going on about it. And I realized something else that I did was any time there was something negative about other members of the church or something that happened, was this, and this is a part of the bite model for kind of culty behavior. And so regardless of whether or not someone wants to call the church that, the behavior I was engaging in definitely did fall in line with that at the time. And that would be to blame the people for what happened to them. So if we take the documentary, the Abducted in Plain Sight one, with that's the family that had the whole family was being groomed by this man. I instantly, even watching that as a non-believer on this side of things now, my mind still latched onto that part as soon as I heard it, like, oh, that's his fault. That was, not just like sexual behavior outside of his marriage, which was adultery, but homosexual behavior, So like, if I am a good Mormon and I am a good Mormon mom, I'm not a mother, but if I was, and I was watching this, I would absolutely think, well, yeah, of course he didn't have discernment. Of course he didn't realize, because he let these things happen to him. He participated in these things. And so so the reason why, I guess the way my mind would have worked then was because he sinned. This is why this horrible thing happened with his daughter. And I would feel safe in that, thinking that as a believer, that as long as I don't engage in adulterous and or homosexual behavior like this guy did, then there's no way that what happened to this family could ever happen to mine. And that's just not true, because that's not the reason why that happened to the family. There were other structures in place. Oh, sorry, Alexa, stop. I have ice packs on that I'm rotating on and off, and I totally thought to try to remember that before I came on, and I didn't. But anyway, that's all that I was going with. That was that I think the value in having believers watch these shows with an open mind would be to look for these kinds of structures, the real things that put them and their families at risk. And I think if they pay attention with that frame of mind, they really could get a lot from these. And if some kind of a similar situation ever happens to them, they'll know right away that something is wrong, and they'll be able to do something about it before it turns into a situation like it happened in that documentary, or the Valos, or any of these things. This isn't just related to one specific instance. That's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Maven, if you want to chime back in with anything at all, just jump back into the stream. We would, we're loving this, so thank you so much. I love your comments.
Love what you said then.
I just don't know if I can be in like a guest tray and not on screen, or do I just leave it completely? Sure.
What you can do is, if you jump back out, we can see as soon as you're in the green room. So yeah,
okay,
you're all good to close it down. But just jump back in when you have more to say. So thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Sarah, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the things I really liked about what Maven said there was that really valid bit for members of the church about thinking, but if I'm living righteously, me and my family are going to be okay.
Yes.
And that is that comes out, I think, really strongly in all of these documentaries is, well, those people were only doing that because they weren't living righteously. They weren't following the Spirit, and they weren't living righteously. And I loved how Maven pulled that together, because we see it in Abducted in Plain Sight. We see it in Big Love. We see it in, what are some of the other ones we see it in? They're going to come to me, so keep talking. Murder Among the Mormons, Keep Sweet and Obey. You know, we're seeing it in all of these, aren't we? There's a couple of others that I'd looked at that I was going to mention. But in all of these, we're seeing that same message of, well, those people got in trouble and got it wrong because they weren't following the prophet. They weren't following God. They weren't following the Spirit.
So if it's
and
okay,
it's almost a fear bit. It's almost like, I'm safe if I follow the Spirit.
yeah. If it's okay, I'm going to stick a pin in this for a second, just to share a quick message. And in the chat, a lot of vulnerability is being shown, and I just wanted to honour that and thank you for sharing your stories and where you're at. It's hugely important, and please know that how you're feeling is valid. Now, after Sunstone, what Alana and I did as part of our healing has been to reach out to, if you're in the UK, there is a fantastic therapist who is, we're going to be speaking with him just shortly on the show. He is a wonderful, wonderful human, and has said, you know, if anybody wants to reach out for support, particularly as he has a background in Mormonism, that he's here. So we're going to put the link to his social media pages and how you can get some support from. His name is David Shepherd, and he's a very safe pair of hands. So do reach out if you need support. Obviously, we're here. But he's one of the professionals, and we just wanted to honour him and thank him for his work, and honour all of your journeys as you put the work in to processing all of this stuff, because it's hard. We also wanted to share, just, you know, put out a trigger warning that some of the stuff that we are potentially going to be talking about over the next very, very short while, because we've already been on here for for a little while. We do want to hear from you if you have any thoughts about the impact of these documentaries on your community and what you've seen, or impact on you. We would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to join, in, we can bring you on the screen. You can keep your camera off or share it in the chat. But we do have a link in the chat if you want to pop in and join us, call-in style. What I also wanted to just quickly say, if this is in any way meaningful to you, if there's someone that you need to share this with, please consider doing it, and please consider subscribing to our content so that we can continue to have these really important conversations. Okay, we're gonna the next vitally important show, as I sit in this space of documentaries where I find them fascinating. I find them really interesting. I've got a lot more comfortable with listening to them. I've got more comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are these themes that keep coming up about trusting in leadership, trusting in power. So, you know, leadership, whether that's, if someone holds the priesthood, what kind of power do they exercise in my life? But also, this is super, super fascinating. In fact, do you know what? Before we go there, I'm actually going to shout out to the current one, Mormon No More, that's out there on Disney Plus right now. It's vulnerable, it's honest, it's beautiful, it's a fantastic story of a LGBT couple, a lesbian couple who meet in the church and fall in love. The story shows beautifully the pain that is caused when people go through faith transition. Any of you all had the chance to have a look at that yet?
Yep, I watched it.
What's your thoughts, Carol?
I found it quite heartbreaking. I think, again, you know, I'll say this not to make it about me or my situation with my family, but just because it's so raw for me, like, because of not that exact thing that happened, but just the LGBTQ stuff. You know, it was just sad to watch the family dynamic and how that was up, you know, that one of the women, you know, ex-husband didn't really have anything to do with her, and you know, and you can understand that you know, it's a painful thing to go through and things, but I just felt that hit me really hard, you know, like just I can't, I'm struggling to find the words of what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say, but it's just not coming out. I think again, it just reiterates to me that the church is just not a safe place. I think that's what I'm trying to say, that, you know, for these people who, again, you know, devoted time, effort, you know, their life to the church, to then have to be in a position to feel like they can't belong there anymore because of who they are.
Yes.
You know, and I think for me, it just always comes back to that it's just not a safe space for the marginalised communities, I think.
Which reminds me, I haven't mentioned Imagine Dragons stuff. What? So is it Believer, that documentary? Did you all? I have not seen that yet.
I think I feel like I did watch it,
No,
but
you
I don't know what my memory's like.
Yeah, I tell Alana where there's a hole in
There's
her
just
memory.
so many just now, though, that it's trying to remember.
Yeah.
Because even the one you said earlier, I didn't remember. Like, as you started talking about it, like the one where there was a fire, right? And
the grooming one, yeah.
Those documents and things like that, where it all started coming back to me.
Murder Among the Mormons.
Yeah.
That one. Like,
Believer was very
powerful.
And actually, that song, Believer, I have to say, the song Believer is one of my favourite songs. I love that song.
Yes.
And there are days when only that song sums up how I feel and how I think about the world. There are days when that song is the only best thing that sums it up. But yeah,
that's
I think
going to be when we have our catch up, our long-awaited actual catch up. I think that should be our karaoke song.
I think it should be Believer.
I'm putting that in as a request.
And
so Alana is a singer.
If I post
she's on
Believer, right? If I ever post Believer and the link to Believer on my Facebook page, you know there's something going on.
Yeah. Oh, it's
pushed the button massively for me.
And what that did in the community to show just how much of an impact these issues are having on our active and post-Mormon, the whole spectrum of Mormonism is affected
massively. And when you just look at, when you saw the was it Love Loud?
Yes.
The Imagine Dragons played at, and I think Neon Trees played it as well, didn't they? They played at Love Loud in Salt Lake a few years ago, and that was just really powerful when they were just there supporting the LGBT community and just saying, hey, do you know what? We feel your pain. We sit with you in that pain, and we're doing what we can to bring attention to the fact that love should be love. And
I think Doug's comment's interesting, and I think that it's quite common. You know, he's saying, like, I think my Mormon community is almost oblivious to these things. I haven't heard any of them even mentioned, much less discussed. And I think that is it for the most part. You know, I think there'll be a very select few within each ward or area that's possibly heard of them.
Do you think there's an element? Do you think there's an element amongst the active Mormon community that it's almost sinful to watch any of these things because they're kind of anti-church, aren't they? And the church, you know, and that there's this sense that people probably feel a bit of guilt about, I really shouldn't watch that because that's not uplifting and it's not going to bring the spirit into my life, and this is going to be typical of the church. And therefore there's that same sense that the loyalty to the church and the defensiveness of the church that members feel so strongly they have to uphold can actually prevent people from feeling free to watch a lot of these documentaries.
Sarah, keep that word defensiveness for a little second. I want you to hold on to that word because I'm going to ask you a little bit more. But Alana, did you have something else that you were going to say?
No.
That's okay. I just wanted to check because again, so we're going to come back to the other two really, really big ones. And then we're very excited to talk about something you all have never seen. This is the 21st Century Saints announcement that we've been waiting to make for over a year. So, so stay tuned, people. It's all happening tonight. But I love in the comments, oh my goodness, this is absolute. See, it's all coming together. let's talk for a little bit about the documentary, The Fifth Estate, that lots of people are watching. So thank you in the comments for pointing that out. Yeah. Sarah, you said the word defensive, and that just brought me straight back to the Fifth Estate. What are active members of the church making about that? And then Alana, and I'm going to ask you, and because I know that how your memory link is going to go, I'm going to specifically ask you in terms of online discussions. Is that helping? I'll message. It's okay. I'll message. Right, Sarah, you go first.
Okay, Fifth Estate. I haven't watched the documentary yet. I've kind of read accounts of it in various articles online that I found online. And it's yet another example of the concerns that so many people have about the wealth of the church and how the wealth of the church is managed. And this concern about money being sent from Canada to BYU University, and what are they doing? They're not paying tax to the Canadian government. They're not spending it on people in need in Canada. They're funneling it to basically wealthy white kids in Utah or in America that are going to go to BYU. And that's kind of the feeling that it's bringing up for people, with the fact that yet again we're seeing the church exploiting a loophole in order for them to get what they want. And I ended up with a little bit of a Facebook war thing going on with somebody the other day.
No, hold on. Right. Who is the someone? Give me the background. Is this an active Mormon?
I suspect strongly active Mormon from what he was saying. I suspect. Awesome. I don't know who the man was. But there was the article on about the Fifth Estate, and he was kind of saying that basically the church weren't doing anything wrong because it was perfectly legal within the tax laws that they could do this. And so I kind of went back and I said, well, it might be legal, but is it moral? And actually, it just seems to be morally bankrupt for the church to not be honest with its members about what they're doing, and not be honest with the Canadian authorities about it, and exploiting a loophole that is there, and exploiting it. And actually and I did say that this is typical of the church, that they will exploit a loophole in law that they find to their advantage and think, well, we're obeying the law, it's legal, we can do it. But if there's a law they don't like, then they will shout religious persecution and religious freedom should be brought into play, such as gay marriage is law, but they don't like it. So they talk about religious freedom whenever they want to uphold their right not to exercise gay marriage and not to afford gay marriage rights to people. But when it comes to money, they look at tax laws and they look at accountancy witchery stuff, and they work out what they can do with all of that in order to get what they want to achieve. So it's not a case of, I mean, I think I sort of said in then that maybe the church should go back and learn the primary song about I believe in being honest in all that I do, because there's a sense that the church choose to stick to this narrow interpretation of the law, which we see around their use of money and what they do with money. We see them skating on the thinnest ice possible, but saying, well, it's legal. And we see it when it comes to safeguarding in the UK. Well, it's legal. Well, it's actually not, but you can hold on to that. But so, when it comes to other laws, they don't.
I'm going to bring, before we come to Alana for comment, I'm going to bring Maven on in a second, who is being super fantastic and sharing. Thank you so much for honouring us with you, because we love you. But quickly, I'm going to share this just to let you both chew on this while we bring on Maven. I got to sit in on there are a series of Euro seminars that are held roughly once a month, and they're fantastic. They're for the I think it's the church sort of somewhere in the education system program, but they're designed for young single adults. And there was a comment from a member. Okay, genuinely, this happened. The person was asking, would, in the context of the church and the economy right now, if something happened in a world economy like what happened in Ukraine, would the church consider forming a parallel government to help that organization. Now, I am listening in horror with bated breath, thinking,
Parallel government.
what is
What?
happening? What?
What?
And let's face it, it is a very, very very TB, like a really extreme,
That's
view.
Desnat. That's bordering on Desnat.
Well, so anyway, can't wait till I tell you all what. And Maven, I'm so excited that you're here to be able to hear this, because this genuinely happened. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you who he was. Right, someone in the chat, if you're in the UK, I will look this up and try and remind you. But the general authority said, he basically said no, and he was like, oh, that's not really going to happen. That's not really how things work. But he said that what the church is looking to happen is for each area to be self-sufficient, which sounds great, except he then went on to say, so if there were to be a natural disaster, an earthquake in your area, you shouldn't be looking to Salt Lake City to come and help. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Why are we donating to human? What's all the money for then?
Then they shouldn't be taking the money out of the country from where it's donated then.
Right.
Okay, anyway, enjoy that. I will
How
get you the
does
name of
that
the guy
work?
who said
That
it.
is wild.
I know, and I'm so sorry that I can't tell you other than the fact that I was there to hear it in person. That's
But
my only
how
source.
does it work?
How does it plumbing work?
We take money out of Africa. They take money out of the Philippines. They take money out of all these countries in the world. They take money, and
Okay,
it becomes
it's Elder Causey.
right.
That was a
and it
quote from Elder
becomes.
Causey. Anyway, Maven,
I
will
don't understand.
you share your thoughts?
Sure. No, I was just coming to jump off of what Sarah was saying about the legal defense, and that was just that was literally what the church has been maintaining throughout this whole brouhaha over the AP articles with the sexual abuse cases.
Yeah.
And that's their line they go to over and over and over again. We didn't do anything illegal. We didn't do anything illegal. Everything we did was legal. But, as to what Sarah said, but is it moral? Was it good? Maybe it wasn't illegal, but you sentenced a girl who had already experienced 5 years of horrific sexual abuse to another 7 more, and another child was born into that, and so and also experienced it. So that's the result of your legal morality, which I guess I would have to put morality around quotes, but I just wanted to piggyback on that. That is where the church does want to go whenever they've done something I think that they know is morally wrong, or at least morally dubious, is to kind of go to the law and just be like, well, it's not illegal what we did, so we can't say anything. But yes, we can.
It's morally bankrupt, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think the problem with us having to, when the church takes that line, us focusing on the bare minimum that we can get away with, one of the reasons we need to talk about this in communities within Mormonism is, if this is where you stand, if this is the church that you're investing your life in being in, then we need to be talking about a gold standard of Mormonism. Thank you so much, Maven. Again, jump in when you have something more to comment. If we're talking about what would be the very best, if the church is the truest, if the church is the best, if the church has got all of this to offer, since when are we ever talking about what is the bare minimum that we can get away with, when it's actually counterproductive to every do more, be more? Come on, we've got this, let's make sure we're 100% type lessons, and that's the kind of dissonance that I'm curious about. Alana, did you have any thoughts? Sorry, I'm aware that you've not been able to comment. Did you have a look?
The comments and putting them up on the screen, so.
And she's doing a grand job in her jammies.
I know.
So church finances, any thoughts on?
Well, it's hard for me because I don't know enough about it. Obviously, you and I, this is how crazy our lives are. Jane and I have been talking about church finances, because I'm like, they take all your money and they do this and they do that. And Jane was like, but it's so fascinating. I've got stuff I'll show you, but we've still not got around to actually looking into it.
D. Michael Quinn, we need to take Alana through D. Michael Quinn 101. But I find
it interesting because it's like that. I followed what I thought was right by giving my money to a church. Obviously, there came a point where I stopped because being a independent parent and, you know, being on benefits due to ill health, not being able to work, I didn't feel the need to give them my money because I didn't have it really to give them. And I guess I got to the point in my life where I didn't really believe that just pay your tithing and everything will work out, you know. But I just think, you know, when I was horrified when I heard, you know, from Peter and different people, and, you know, that all this money's sitting there, like, why are they not using it? And so I guess that just validated, like, well, no, I'm not going to give you my money if you're going to just do nothing with it.
Well, let me ask you a more specific question. So, is this documentary, is this the Canadian Broadcasting Association, I believe it is? So what, the Canadian version of the BBC, super reputable, right? Is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation just posting anti-Mormon stuff? Is this just an anti-Mormon expose documentary thing?
No. It's interesting because I always grew up with knowing this word, anti-Mormon stuff, anti-Mormon stuff. We don't look at anti-Mormon stuff. And then I met Jane. He's like, I don't believe in, there is no such thing as anti-Mormon stuff. And as I've got round to it, I've realised, well, no, it's not anti-Mormon, because a lot of it is the truth, with exception possibly of a few things that are maybe what seems a bit exaggerated, or, you know, but a lot of these documentaries are telling the story. I'm not saying they're 100% factual necessarily, you know, because with anything, when it's based on a true story, there's dramatisation, there's, you know, different things come into it. So I don't think personally I would see it as an anti-Mormon, but I guess when you're a TBM in the Mormon Church, I think you would class it as anti-Mormon stuff.
Well, we were in Sarah, I believe you're actually, I don't know if you maybe had missed this one. I'll have to send you some screenshots. But, you know, we're in a group where a Mormon, and, you know, an active Mormon man is sort of saying, well, you know, why should it matter? Why is it a big deal? This is money. I trust the church. Why would transparency matter? And I think this is where most active Mormons land. They trust the church. They trust where their money's going. They don't really need to know. They've committed it to God, so the work's been done. Why does it matter?
But this is the thing, though. People can't say 100% within the church that they know where their money's going. They only have the church's word on that.
Do you need to know?
Yeah. Well, if they're taking my money and just having it sitting there, what are you doing with it? You give your money. Yeah, I guess you're taught to build the kingdom of God, and obviously, as I was younger, I was taught it was used for books, you know, the church books and all these things. But you can't tell me that all of that money is getting used on that. Then you see them popping up the blooming mall in Utah, like, what the flipping heck? You know, all these different things. You're happy to do all these things, but where are you when people are really truly in need?
So
what are you doing then?
Yeah.
But this is the point of why it's important for Mormons, for Mormon communities to have these conversations, because we can teach the principle of tithing all we like, but, you know, do we ever just get into ourselves as, well, is it important? Is transparency important? Should we know? Is it okay? Is it sinful to not?
I think this is where it gets difficult, isn't it? Because I think what the church will tell you, and what many members say to me, and what the church has said many times, is we should just trust our leaders. We pay our tithing. It's up to them. We trust them to make the best decisions because they're inspired and directed by God. But we've had a discussion about this inspiration and discernment earlier, haven't we? So we know that's fallible and we know it's problematic. But most people feel that in not trusting the church, in not just saying, yes, here's my money, I trust you to do what is best with my money, there's a sense that they're being a little bit disobedient and a little bit sinful and a little bit not trusting.
Yes.
Unworthiness, doesn't it, in somebody's mind? And actually that label of unworthy is put upon you as soon as you are very clear that you will not pay tithing, and these are the reasons you won't pay tithing. Then that label of unworthiness is formally kind of stuck upon you almost, isn't it?
But I think to extend that idea though, Sarah, if we're talking about that unworthiness, if then an expose comes out or a documentary suggesting that maybe we should be uncomfortable or concerns or that questions have to be raised, then what it's actually doing is that the suggestion is the church behaving in an unworthy way, and that makes members really, really frightened. So, like the comments I'm referring to, are in a group where, sort of someone was saying, well, I've been in audit committees, I've worked in this area for, all of these years. I can assure you that our leadership aren't skimming off the top, like other charities do, other churches do. I mean, I don't know where the hell they're getting that from. But, members are coming back pointing out that it's not wrong to want to know where your money goes.
I'm just asking myself a question about, do I go here? I'm just thinking to myself, do I go here? Do I say what is on my mind, what I'm thinking of saying? But what the heck?
Welcome to the world of 21st century saints. We have a passing thought and we think, should we? And normally we do. Okay, go Sarah, jump, you'll catch you.
What the heck? You're my friend. You love me. You'll love me when my head's blown.
We all love you.
I spent some time with a faith community a while ago, and this faith community were having a day's conference that they kindly invited me to join them in. They said, come and join us for our day's conference. They said, we're going to have a couple of sessions where we're conducting business. There's going to be sort of praise and worship and spiritual stuff. And then we're going to have a bit of a boring business meeting. And then we're going to have a meeting that's going to be really boring because it'll be all about finance. But it won't last that long and it'll be okay. Basically just sit through that. The rest of the day will be great. And I went and I was amazed, absolutely amazed, that this church had fully published documents of every penny of income they'd received, what the money had been spent on, and how the money had been used. And everybody had a copy of it, and everybody was invited to ask the financial, whoever he was, whatever his title, I can't remember, but everybody was invited to ask the financial person questions about this financial document. This is the money, this is what we've had from offerings, from revenue, from this is what we've done with it, this is what we've put some money aside to do, this is what we need to do, this is how much we need for that. And every single person, me, not even a member, had a copy of this and sat there and was able to go through it. And people were asking questions. People were saying, well, what was that for? Well, why was that decision made? How was it decided to spend that? How did that come about?
Wow.
And I sat there thinking that the level of transparency was fantastic and that I loved the level of transparency. But even more than that, what I found that I loved was the honest relationship between the church with its members. And it wasn't a faith community saying to its members, you are to trust us because we know best. It was a church saying to their members, this is what you've trusted us to do with your money. This is what we've done with it. What's your feedback on that? And something about honesty and trust came out very strongly to me in that discussion that I was able to join in with.
I'm thinking just about the simplicity of, like as Alana's talking to her daughter, just off screen here, that, where just something as simple as, Alana's child is involved with mum and baking a cake to give to someone, and that's going to be that child's contribution to doing something really kind, and mum decides what happened. You go to school and your job is done, and you miss that missing part of being able to see the reaction, the impact of your gift, that instead, that mum's going to take Daisy to go and deliver it to grandma or to a neighbour or whoever, because the gift was actually, the gift was never about the cake. It was about, that person wanted to do, wanted to connect with you as a human being through love. That we, what a beautiful thing to ask how, and could we spend our money in that way where we're really choosing as a community how to? Yeah.
Can you imagine for 1 second if the apostles just stopped for a moment, and instead of coming over to England when we had the Halloween trio of apostles come, if I shouldn't call it that, should I? Okay, but anyway, when they came over to do what they did, talk about the second anointing and all sorts of things that are not meant to mention, but when they came and did that, can you imagine if they hadn't come to talk at people, if they had come to say, we want to engage you young adults who we want to sit in a chapel with and talk to us. We want to engage you in a discussion about what you think we should be doing with our finances as a church. What is important to you? What matters to you? And what would you like us to see as a church, us funding and us looking at and us thinking about how we can do that? Can you imagine all of a sudden the relevance that the church would have in the lives of those young people, that were able to be part of a discussion, as I was when I took part in this day's conference with this faith community, they invited me along for the day, as I was able to be part of what people felt they should be doing with their money and how people felt it should be prioritised and spent. Can you imagine the relevance that the church would then start to have in the lives of people if they felt they'd had a say in where their tithings go? Yes, pay tithing. There's some valuable principles in generosity. I mean, the law of tithing as we're taught it today is not what it was taught in the early church anyway, but there's value in generosity.
Yes.
And there's huge value in generosity. But can you imagine how much more meaningful that generosity would be to young people if they were able to say, we want you to get a clean water supply in this African village. We want you to help build a day centre for disabled adults in our community. We want you to do this. Can you just see the power of Christ and the ability for people to live generosity through a lens of Christ that would be so much more meaningful than handing over 10% of your income to an organisation that put it in the bank or build a shopping mall?
And I think so. I'm gonna wrap up this part of the show because I'm actually really excited about the idea that here's three little Mormons who can have what I think is a super healthy discussion about something that, let's face it, it's not something active members of the church feel comfortable watching. We're specifically told to avoid watching this. If there's anything that makes us feel this feeling of dissonance, it's of Satan. We can have really healthy discussions about what that could possibly look like. Can you imagine a church where they notice that 90% of church membership feel like LGBTQ support needs more funding, and how that would shift what we do as a church, or whatever it could look like? It would show you the heart of the members, certainly.
It would.
But
and the responsibility and taking responsibility, it is so much more important to learn value about generosity and money if you take responsibility for what's done with that money. Instead of handing it over to somebody else, instead of handing that responsibility over.
We don't delegate our accountability to anything in God's plan. We
don't trust people to use their God-given abilities to make decisions. We trust them to use their God-given obedience.
So here's what, fortunately, I feel quite smug here because I had a funny feeling we would have a lot to talk about tonight. We have planned that this Wednesday night we were going to probably have to talk about some more Netflix type, online streaming documentary stuff. So the bulk of what we're going to talk about next time is going to be Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, which was hugely impactful for us all. And also the one everyone was talking about, Under the Banner of Heaven. Those things are super impactful and really important because we want to talk about fundamentalism. We want to talk about extremism and how those things play out in a uniquely Mormon way. But So what we want to talk about before we finish tonight, and I'm sorry we didn't get through everything, but I really appreciate the discussions that we've been having. I want to show you all about this little show that is going to be aired tomorrow. Now, we have not seen this, but we've seen a little trailer, and I feel really quite gutted because this at the moment is only available to watch in the United Kingdom tomorrow at 7:30, and after it will be available to stream, but I think only within the United Kingdom.
thought it
Now,
was 8
if you're
o'clock.
At 8 o'clock, Jane, yeah.
8
8
o'clock,
o'clock,
so
yeah, I thought it
I
was
didn't
8
even
o'clock.
remember that I said a time. Anyway, I'm going to show
Yeah, no, it's 8 o'clock.
show you guys this. But what I suggest you do, if you have any interest in seeing what oh no, let me just see if I can share this. If you have any interest in seeing if you want to watch this, maybe ask someone about a VPN. I don't know if that will help. But this is what's going to be on TV on Halloween, 8 p.m. on BBC Scotland, and simultaneously it's going to be on BBC iPlayer. And we've known about this show for a little while. And the reason we know, who's that guy right there? Oh, he looks a little bit as a good face for Halloween. We are really excited about this because last Sunstone, can you guys still hear okay? Is the audio still working? Okay. So last Sunstone, there in the UK, there was a film crew there, and it's because they were doing some video on this family right here. So I haven't seen it. I wasn't. No, Sarah and I both. We had, well, the filming was happening, but this family. Now, if I can just see underneath the writing, they're based in Dundee. They're called the Han family. And they have, now, what is that? 13 children? Does that say?
13?
Let me just.
Oh, there was 13.
13. Wow, you guys are amazing. 13 kids. So they're in Lossiemouth, and there's another family. But what's super interesting is they're this family, the Han family, they are grappling with leaving the Mormon church. Now, the reason why I am so fascinated about this is because I am so excited about the idea that we're going to see a documentary about leaving the church. And it's, maybe this is me in cloud cuckoo land here. Maybe this is just too much to expect. But I would love to be able to watch this and then report back on Wednesday and, show clips of, look at these people who are leaving the church and it's super healthy, and look how this healthy, transition away from Mormonism goes. I'm really, really hopeful that that's what we're going to see. Now, I don't think I've ever actually seen anything where we have seen what a good faith transition what a healthy faith transition can look like. Certainly the Mormon No More one showed huge amounts of pain. So while I'm not, I guess I'm just being super naive. Is it too much to expect that we're going to see a lot of healthiness here? Is that? Oh my goodness, I am, Anna. I'm being super naive.
I love you're a positive woman, and I love it.
Probably. I'm going to call it I Henya.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just going, yeah.
Well, I can't wait on Wednesday when I get proven right that we're going to see lots of good things. And you know what? There's 13 kids in this. At least I'm sure we're going to see some cute, fun stuff. So there will be that. But I mean, genuinely, it's on prime time.
It's about fantastic
in Scotland.
people.
Well,
it's about fantastic people.
Right. So like
they're
this
fantastic couple. So.
Well, I mean, I don't know huge amounts of Mormons, so I am so restricted to my own geography. I had to have Dundee pointed out on a map, like at Sunstone That's how bad I am. I can roughly point to where I live on a map. I am not exaggerating. And I don't know anybody who's sort of any further up past Glasgow, or no, pretty much people in my state. I know no Mormons in my country who are not like, who don't live next door. I only know Alana because she stays 3 streets away, or we would never have met. But yeah, so but what I think is fascinating is we're talking about Mormonism. It's at primetime TV, and all of these people, these are all our faith community. So I'm really excited to see what that could potentially look at. Because actually, that I think I do know a couple of a couple of young friends who live up in Dundee too, and they're all really nice. And I visited Dundee Bingham Ward once, and they were all completely charming. So I'm really hopeful that we're gonna have a really positive experience and maybe talk about the pain and see modelled how we can do it in healthy ways. That is my hope. I'm hoping that we can see Mormon TV and not all feel like the church is being attacked or threatened, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But I do acknowledge I'm just very, very naive. So anyway, that is happening. They filmed at Sunstone last year, and Sarah, you couldn't be on camera at that point. Like, so anytime the cameras were around.
Oh, I know. I was talking to the BBC cameraman, wasn't I? I was like, don't get me in this shot. And he's like, can you just move over there? Could you just go out the way?
Oh,
I'm like, yeah,
the cameraman, everyone loved him. Hey, cameraman, and the event you're there, you're a delight.
And the only reason I was funny about being on camera is because I was still working at the time, and I didn't wish to broadcast my whereabouts.
I was being too much of a social butterfly, so I know that I don't make an appearance in this. But Alana, I think there's like a little glimpse of you on camera. No, I've been told. No, I'm not kidding. Like, I've been told.
Definitely, you're the Alana. Definitely. Didn't we all fall in love with the cameraman? Or was that just me?
No, everyone loved the cameraman. So yeah, if you are watching, we love you.
Yeah, we did love you.
But yeah, no. So Alana, you participate in a class that was being led by the couple in the documentary, which you had really enjoyed, right?
Yeah.
So some of that is filmed, and I wasn't in that class. I was getting my Mormon scholarship on somewhere, so like I totally missed that. So I'm excited to see. But what you're all gonna get the joy, excuse me, of being able to see. Do you two want to talk about Peter Bleakley last year and what he looked like?
Oh, he had this. He wore his apostasy cap, didn't he? The one that he made especially for his church court, with the nice big pointed bishop's type hat with A on the top of it for apostasy. And then didn't he have his cape? Did he have his cape on? I can't remember. He had his sword. He
was fully dressed up in.
I'm sure he had the cape on and the sword.
Yeah, there was garb. He was wearing garb, and he had the hat.
Yeah, the hat.
And so he's doing this really fascinating presentation. But Peter's podcasts, so this is Peter Bleakley of Mormon Civil War. And his podcasts are all in audio form. So you don't get the real wonderful, beautiful, flamboyant energy of Peter. And so he just unleashed his dramatic side, his the full thing. And so as an audience, we were there for it. We were, we were in stitches. But you get so I'm just so excited to see, that this is what a sort of Mormon academic, the whole Mormon spectrum is going to be totally outshone by this wonderful man who's giving a presentation to an audience while he is waving a sword and holding, wearing an apostasy hat. Oh, guys, we're going to look like crazy people. And you know what? It's not going to be completely inaccurate. So that's what we've got coming up that's all over the next couple of days, and we're going to tell you how that show goes and what things we learn from it, because we are so small and insulated in the UK and Mormonism. We all care about each other. We're all a very close community. What are people saying about it? What kind of impact is it going to have? We're excited to speak about it some more, and we're going to get into Mormon fundamentalism, radical Mormons, and what part does the Church of Jesus Christ play in those specific stories.
And
so
do you know
we're
what,
going to get some closing thoughts from you guys. So Sarah, do you want to say what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, I suppose one thing I'm just going to say, just about Keep Sweet and Obey, is that when I watched that, it actually triggered a lot of things for me. That did. I found that very triggering when I watched it some time ago. So it'd be interesting to debate it on Wednesday night a little bit more.
Definitely.
Because I mean, I think I'm sort of pretty well balanced and pretty well adjusted to my new nuanced foot here, foot there person, spiritually complicated lifestyle. But I actually found Keep Sweet and Obey triggering. So it'd be interesting to look at what that was about and why.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to learn from all these documentaries that are out there, very much about why the church are so defensive and don't want us watching them, why church members are so loyal to the church and have to stick up for the church instead of being willing to open up with curiosity and question and challenge and think, well, what was truth in there? What was dramatization? What was real? And does this influence anything? And we just see these themes coming out again and again about compliance, persuasion, exploitation, uncomfortable, but we see themes coming out. We see grooming coming out. And, you know, we need to recognise that the church teaches people how to groom in it because it's how they get people to follow and obey.
Yeah, it's that uniquely Mormon way things play out. Absolutely.
We see them all coming out in here, don't we? With the messages that this is how you get closer to God. So it'll be really interesting, I think, to debate those. And I think really particularly on the back of being able to look at Emma and her family's journey out of the church, having been incredibly staunch, strong members for an incredible lifetime, see them coming out of the church and looking at that in the backdrop of what we can learn about some of these themes and messages that we see in some of these very fundamentalist Mormon documentaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Wednesday, but it will be very interesting to have the debate.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to hearing some thoughts. We've got lots to talk about. Alana, closing thoughts for tonight? Anything that you're thinking? It cracks me up.
At this very moment, I'm thinking my daughter better get to sleep and stop banging on her wall, or I'm going to have to sort her out. That's what I'm thinking right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the real life.
I don't. I guess I don't have much to say on the matter, but I'm really looking forward to this episode tomorrow night. Days out Halloweening, trick or treating even early, so that I can be in on time to watch it live. And yeah, I think if I can squeeze it in, I might need to go back and watch. It's still available, right?
Yeah.
Bay, isn't it, or something like that? Just to redraw. I have watched it, but you know me, like, so I might need to.
Yeah, we absolutely. And plus, you know, the I think, as you said earlier, when we start talking about the themes, often, you know, that's just enough to sort of bring back the memories. But you know, because these really do impact our communities. You know, and similarly, a simple documentary is coming out tomorrow, and it's going to make us all think about what Mormonism looks like in our lives and what we're going to do with that. So we're going to talk about this playing out in real time. So for those of you who are interested in watching and want to know more, we are going to have links on the Facebook discussion group. So we will put it on our own 21st Century Saints page, I think. But if you want to join the Brit Vengers discussion group or Sunstone UK, you will see some links up there. It's on the BBC. So, you know, we know if you're in America and you have an interest in this show, it might be more tough for you to watch. But you know what, if you maybe mention in the chat I'm sure we have tech experts who can see if there's a way around that. But certainly we're gonna have some clips, and we're going to talk about all the main things that we learn. Please join us for that. We're going to see if we can arrange to have a watch party for those who are up for it and want to join in the live chat. Okay, so again, thank you all so much for your time tonight. We're going to ask if this has been valuable to you in any way. Please do consider sharing it. Please do consider subscribing to our content, because it makes a huge difference in us being able to do our work. We are super excited to be here same time on Wednesday. And if you have any thoughts, please do jot them down. We really, really want to hear from you. And if you're interested in joining us on the screen, we would certainly love to have your contributions. So yeah, come join us as 21st Century Saints and tell us what you're thinking. Okay, everyone, have a great night, and we bless your journey.
Night, everyone.
Hey, everyone.